I'm going through this phase right now where I'm trying to figure out where the best place in my house to shoot is for like these types of talking head videos, and I'm in my bedroom now, and this is not it, but we're here anyway, so this is where we're gonna be for the day. So today I want to talk about my experience using the C200 and whether I think that this is a camera that is still relevant or still usable in 2021. And the short answer is yes, it is. But, you know, that being said, I do have a list of things that I'm not too excited about. So I really want this video to be from the perspective of somebody who does not shoot Canon and has not shot Canon using this camera. What are my thoughts and what do I think are its strengths for 2021, and where do I like really just don't connect with it. Just grabbing the camera out of its box, having no experience, not looking at any tutorials or anything like that on how to use it, it's pretty intuitive. It's clear that when Canon was building this camera, they were thinking about the ergonomics, and obviously the ergonomics of the C200 carry over to the C300 and the C500. So clearly something's working for them. What I do like about the C200 is that, you know, buttons are simple to find. The layout of the buttons is relatively simple, and once you look at the camera for, you know, a short period of time and you familiarize yourself with like the things that are going on that are really positive, it's easy. You know, it's easy to use. You adjusting your aperture, simple as sliding down. Trying to change your ISO, simple as, you know, sliding the same sort of dial that you might on your camera, DSLR. So it's sort of built with the mind of like, okay, I'm coming from a mirrorless or I'm coming from a DSLR, and I have that muscle memory. How would I use that? And so the same is sort of true for the autofocus adjustment buttons and some of those other buttons that are, you know, displayed throughout the camera. My con to that is that though this camera is built for ergonomics, I would say that because there's so many options and there's so many buttons that are condensed in like what I think is a relatively small portable body, it's really easy for you to be holding the camera and to accidentally hit a button or to slide your iris down accidentally. Now, luckily Canon has thought of this and they have a setting in your camera that you can do to lock in your settings. So all you really have to do if you're worried about that is just flip the lock on and all of your settings will be will stay put. So you don't have to worry about accidentally putting a button down, although if you don't have that on, it's certainly easy to do. And I found myself, before I even realized this was an option, like, why is my picture getting darker? And it's like, oh, I'm not at 2.8 anymore, I'm at 4.5. So, you know, you want to be conscious of that. Another strength of the C200 that I would say works really well and phenomenally, and I am, for full disclosure, a Blackmagic user. I use the Blackmagic Ursa Mini Pro. So if you've been on my channel, you know this because I talk about the Ursa Mini Pro all the time. I think it's a phenomenal camera. But I am used to the Blackmagic RAW codec, and I'm not, you know, like a technical expert or whatever about codecs or any of that. But, you know, within Blackmagic RAW, there's a feature that's called highlight recovery, and like, yes, you can pull, you know, some of those details back from like really blown out highlights, but certainly not as well as what the Canon RAW can do. And I've worked with red footage, I've worked with Blackmagic RAW footage, and I would say that of all of that RAW that I've worked with, the Canon RAW is so dynamic in retaining highlights, and it doesn't even take that much of an adjustment to pull back. So you're really able to create deep shots with the highlight recovery from the RAW for the Canon. Definitely not true if you're shooting in any of the other codecs. You know, if you're shooting in the MP4 or XF, AVC, forget it. It's going to be blown out. But you know, the good thing is, the Canon C200 does come with internal NDs, and I think you can slide them up by 3 or up to 6 or whatever. So it's good, and it's got you covered for that. Now, you know, the downside to the Canon RAW is that the processing that it takes for your computer is like massive. It's so big. Canon files are massive, and if you don't have like a super fast computer, then I could see how that could be a really big problem. For me, my easy, you know, go around with this was to create proxy files within DaVinci Resolve. So you just put all of your footage into DaVinci Resolve. You go back to your media folder, you create proxies, you wait like 30 minutes, however long you need for that footage to really create its optimized self. And then you use that, and that completely solved all of my problems that I was having with, you know, like playing back at like 12 frame rates. Definitely would recommend for that, and I know a lot of people have complained about just the massive file sizes with Canon and how long that can take your workflow. I do use DaVinci Resolve, so I think DaVinci Resolve is easier than having to download the other software that Canon wants you to use for their RAW, and then having to go to Premiere Pro. Just like, I've gotten rid of that whole process, and I really just use DaVinci Resolve. So in terms of audio quality, so I mean, you're getting a good sample of this now. I'm recording natively into the Canon C200, so all of the audio that you're hearing, hopefully you're hearing it, and hopefully everything is good, is coming from that C200. And I think it's decent. I do think that the Ursa Mini Pro G2 has a better built-in preamp for sound. I was getting a ton of clipping even on low settings for audio adjustments with the Canon C200 when I was filming the other day, and so I have not had those issues with the Ursa Mini Pro G2. If you're somebody who is running gun and you know, you're kind of looking to get those nat sound bites from the Canon C200, I would say it's more of a weakness than a strength. But it is good because it has, I think, 2 or 3 channels of audio, XLR ports and mics, 3mm mic port. It's got 4 different ways you can record audio. 2 channels that are built in with XLR, maybe more, I haven't discovered that yet. And it is compatible with SDI. The difference for me coming from Blackmagic and the Ursa Mini Pro is the autofocus. And I've been shooting manual for so long that I have like a natural distrust of autofocus. And I don't, for me, part of the fun of shooting is actually shooting in manual, especially with some of the run and gun work, although, there are definitely moments where I'm like, I wish I got that shot. I would say the same is true with Canon, the C200's autofocus. It's there and it works when it works. The face detection is there. It just hunts almost. It's like it's hunting in the background. If I was doing a shoot and I needed to be present for it, I probably would turn autofocus off, but that's just me. Having that autofocus option there, that's not on like mirrorless or something, is, good for me. And I'm excited to see what that looks like. I'm hoping that the more I use the C200, the better adapted to it I'll get. But it's gonna be interesting.
It's gonna be interesting.
Coming from an Ursa Mini Pro G2, I would say, some of the things people might think of the cons and pros with the C200, I think of as drawbacks. Like, I think that the C200 has, it's obviously designed with the user in mind. It's intuitive to use. It's ergonomically designed, but not in a great way. First of all, the camera body is pretty light. So, I mean, if you're backpacking and you're carrying a bunch of equipment and you have to meet some sort of weight requirement, that's a pro. But for me, somebody who's used to shooting handheld and who likes the stability of having more counterweight balanced throughout a larger surface, I love that about the Ursa Mini Pro G2. I love that it's kind of bulky and that there's, pretty evenly supported weight just because of the V-mount battery in the back and the lens in the front. With the Canon C200, it's very front heavy, depending on whatever lens you have. So a lot of the time, you'll have to like balance it by like kind of holding it in the back, or if you have a handle, like it's just sort of weird, and it creates more tension going forward than it does back. And I don't like that. I like it. I like being able to get my stable manual shot with the Ursa and just have my grip there and have it be balanced naturally because it's bulky. I'd say the Canon C200 with all the attachments, and I've got, the little monitor, I've got the boom mic,
mount on it.
I've got the grip. I'd say it's probably close to 7 pounds, but with the Ursa, it's, with all of my monitor and my handle and my shoulder grip and all that, that's closer to like 12, 13, maybe even 14 pounds. And I love shooting that way. Is it something that, most people would have an issue with? I don't think so. I wish that the MP4 and XF AVC, I forget if that's the right name for the codec, I wish those were not an 8-bit. You've got this really amazing RAW file, and that's beautiful. I think it's like 12-bit, and I don't know what the dynamic range is, but it's beautiful. And then your only other option is an 8-bit MP4 or XF AVC, and like it's kind of like having a beautiful cake and then having Twinkie. If you're only going to shoot in the MP4 format or the XF AVC without, using Canon's RAW, I would say that you might as well just stick to some of the mirrorless cameras and opt for variable ND filter. I did come to Blackmagic because I was a Nikon shooter, and Nikon doesn't have any cinema cameras, and Blackmagic was the only cinema camera that made Nikon f-mount lenses. I also love the Ursa's color science. I love Blackmagic's color science, and it's part of the reason that I still love to grade the camera footage, the B-roll. But I still think I would lean towards the Ursa Mini Pro if it was put between the two, but at this point there's so many options. But now you've got the Sony FX6, you've got the Sony FX9, if you want to save that up. And that's probably honestly going to be my next camera, is the Sony FX9. I don't know how I'm going to afford that transition because everything I own is Nikon. So anyway, I did just want to give you my thoughts on this, and I'll show some footage. And if you're in the market of investing, I think it's a great time for it. The Canon C200 has some killer deals on B&H right now. If you make a student account, you go to B&H and you have any sort of edu domain that you can log in. I think they have like a 5 or 10% off for Canon C200, so look at that and let me know. And honestly, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'll let you know if any of my thoughts change on the C200. I've only had it for a week, and so I'm still learning, obviously, how to use this thing, and yeah, I'm sure things will change. But thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't already, make sure you like, subscribe, comment. I am, like I said, trying to start a community here, so if that's something you're into, and if you like to watch, kind of camera reviews or just behind the scenes kind of stuff, or even some of my projects, like I'm happy to share and to support your work as well. So thank you guys so much, and take care. Bye.